There's a huge aspect of Eran and I that I just feel like we have not given enough credit and have not spoken about. And that is all about our Bukharian culture. Boyfriends. My dad does not like that word. There's like no such thing as boyfriends.
You can be friend, you can be boy, but you cannot be both.
Boyfriend. Women back then in Uzbekistan were not allowed to do their eyebrows unless they were getting married. When Eran and I were dating, we actually had to do this whole thing called a kankhori, which is basically an announcement to the entire world that you are officially dating somebody.
But listen, I have boy, you have daughter. We put together, everybody happy, okay?
Well, hey babes.
What's up?
It's Haley.
And Eran.
And welcome back to the Hey Babes podcast. Babe, how excited are you for today's episode?
It's a topic we're very experienced in.
Very experienced in. You guys really loved our topic of talking about our Judaism and our religious background. But there's a huge aspect of Eran and I that I just feel like we have not given enough credit and have not spoken about.
Not at all.
And that is all about our Bukharian culture. Yes.
Bukharian fans are going to be like, oh my gosh.
I know. Say it with me. Bukharian. Yes.
How do you even spell that?
I don't even want to attempt it.
But you need to have like the not Bukharian or Bucharian, like my friends you say, it's Bukharian.
You know? Basically, you guys, Eran and I have a very rich culture of where we're from. We are both Bukharians, but we've both experienced our culture differently, growing up in different parts of the world. And today we're pretty much going to give you a deep dive, not into the boring history, but more of like the craziness of the religion, and that I love. Like, I don't know, I just feel like so many aspects.
I feel like in general every culture and every heritage has their
quirks.
Their quirks, but that we'll just explain to you how ours is.
And how it's shaped
obviously
us as
from
people.
love.
Yes. So all the Bukharians watching, you'll feel this podcast in your soul. And for you guys that aren't, we're not crazy, we promise. But hopefully you guys will get a little bit of insight of where we come from and how we came to be the way we are. And a lot of our values have definitely been shaped from our culture and things that our parents brought us up in. So we're really excited to get into today's podcast all about our Bukharian culture.
Yeah, so
okay,
how did it even come about?
Okay,
Bukharians?
so let's just do like a quick little history dive of our background, I also still don't know the difference between ethnic and culture.
Should have brought our parents on this podcast. They would have explained it to us.
Oh, my accent, like my parents' accents alone would make people so interested in listening.
No, but that's a thing. I used to think also like Bukharians were from a Russian like descendants, but they're not.
They're not at all. So I'll give you a quick little Google history dive. Bukharians are basically a mixed culture of Persian and Jewish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Jews are also an ethnic culture. It's not just a religion. So our family are from Uzbekistan. Bukharians migrated there years and years ago. I don't even want to say the number. And they were in a city called Bukhara.
Yeah.
So Bukharian Jews came from Bukhara. They've lived there for many years. We are, from what I know, the original Bukharians are one of the only cultures that is all Jewish. Like, all authentic Bukharians are actually Jewish, which is really cool. Because there's other cultures like Kafkazis that they have Muslim Kafkazis and they have Jewish Kafkazis. But all born Bukharians are Jewish, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that being said, my parents told me that our ancestors originated, I think, from Persia. So over time, they've traveled down and they migrated in Uzbekistan. And then the reason as to why everyone in Uzbekistan, or a lot of them, speak Russian is because during the whole stage of communism, they just wanted to Russify the entire area. So my parents speak Russian, but Bukharians also have a language called Bukharian, which I actually don't know, but Eran's parents do know.
Yeah. No, your parents don't also a little. They understand. They just don't speak it as much. But my parents speak fluent Bukharian.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't come down to us. And I remember growing up, everybody always be like, Bukhari Mezuni. And I'm like, what? And then they're like, you speak Bukhari? I'm like, no. And then they look at my parents. Like, why are you not doing this, that?
The dialect of Bukharian is really cool. It is actually a mixture of Persian with Hebrew. So
Hebrew?
Yeah, there's Hebrew words in Bukharian also.
What? Like what?
I don't know. You can't ask me. Ask my mom. But that's what I know about our culture. So in the 90s, so there's actually two different migrations. A lot of people left in the 70s and a lot of people left in the 90s. So most of them moved either to Israel or to America, I would say. A lot to New York. And then my family in the 90s moved to Israel. And after Israel, they went to Canada. So we're going to kind of go in. And starting off, I want to tell you guys some quirks about the Bukharian culture that I grew up in and that Egan grew up in.
Yeah, because apparently even for me, when I moved to Toronto, you can feel like the Bukharians in America and Miami and New York and all these other places are different compared to Canada. I think it just all just has to do a lot of it with, I guess, the type of jobs that they had and the environment that they're in. But yeah, we just grew up very, very different.
But I don't know what it is. Maybe other cultures are like this also, but it's, even though it's been like over 20, 30 years that a lot of Bukharians have lived in America, they all still seem like FOBs. Like literally everyone still seems so fresh off the boat. Like accents, talking in old school language, like even their morals and their values sometimes seem very old school.
But that's the thing, it's more of like in our parents, like there's some people like in our age that carry those values. Like we carry certain values, but like we're not as old school compared to what they like. They're just very different cultures that we grew up as Bukharians that we don't necessarily do now. But some of them we do like.
So I want to actually start off with telling you a couple of things that maybe I've mentioned in the past. Egan, I don't know if your parents were the same, but my parents, like most Bukharian parents, were pretty strict in the sense of like they had a lot of rules.
No, but I think not just a lot of Bukharian, like a lot of people like that, like Italian maybe, or I know like Indian or like Muslim, like a lot of people are very much like that.
So
Moroccan.
The first thing that comes into my mind is about boyfriends, okay? My dad does not like that word. There's like no such thing as boyfriends. It's like you cannot date until you're married kind of situation, you know? So
you can be friend, you can be boy, but you cannot be both.
Boyfriend, exactly. So I want to say with me, I had a lot of guy friends in high school, which my mom was luckily okay with, but a lot of Bukharian women just kind of wanted to keep like the girls with the girls and the boys with the boys. Like it was just I grew
up very much that way. I think also it's not just a Bukharian thing. Also in the Jewish life, it's usually like that.
There's like a separation.
There's a separation between the two. Obviously, there's for other reasons, but I grew up the same way too. Like it was like you hang out with the guys. If I hung out with any girl cousins, it was. If I hung out with any girls, there would be cousins, there would be family.
Exactly. But you know what the real reason is because I think the biggest sin you can make in Bukharian culture is like losing your virginity before marriage. That's what it is. That's really what it is.
No, but it's also in the Jewish where many religions is like that too. But I remember like my mom came to my room when I was like 16. She like came crying. She's like, Eran, please. Only till marriage. I'm like, what are you talking about? What are you waiting till marriage? And she's like, only be intimate when you get married, please. I'm like, okay, dang, man, no worry. Like, can I finish watching my show in my room? It was like really, but again, it's a huge deal. But again, it also has to do with the Bukharian culture, but also with Judaism as well.
I think it's just that Bukharians, because I think we are authentically like born Jewish, I think the religion had such a big effect on how everybody was raised in a way. And this whole strictness thing had its limitations. So I kind of want to tell you guys a little bit about a tradition that you have heard me talk about, and that is eyebrow threading. You guys know I've been doing eyebrow threading for years, but what you may not know is that it's actually been passed down through my great-great-grandmother. So I know you're thinking eyebrow threading, like what? Like why is this something that's passed down? That makes no sense. So in the Bukharian culture back then, and a lot of Bukharians don't even know this, but my great-great-grandmother was something called a koshchin. And basically, she was the woman that would be doing a woman's eyebrows for the first time because why? Women back then in Uzbekistan were not allowed to do their eyebrows unless they were getting married. And apparently, if you did your eyebrows, you were considered like a slut. Like, it was so crazy. Literally like gulai kandos, like somebody who like goes with guys and is promiscuous and whatever. So literally like my mom and like literally one generation above me, they did not do their eyebrows until they were married. Until like the day before.
Unibrows, like gigantic.
That's something else about Bukharians. A lot of Bukharians are very hairy. So like poor women, they would be going around with like a unibrow. And you know what? A lot of the grandmothers, babe, still to this day will not get rid of the unibrow. It's like part of the cultural representation.
Even guys too. Guys also have unibrows.
I know, but with guys it's like, okay, fine, you have a unibrow, whatever.
But still.
It's like a Frida situation.
But that's the thing. I think it was also like a tactic because then they'll be like, marry this girl, she's good. Like no, and then when you do her eyebrows, like, oh okay, she looks normal now. So it's like a tactic. Like you make her look so hairy, and then
all the singles you keep hairy, and then the women ready for marriage, you like do their eyebrows.
They're like, oh okay, she's good now.
So to tell you the truth, because of the fact that this is something that my my great grandmother did, this was her job. So like she would be getting paid, and it's actually, in a way, it's a very beautiful tradition, because the woman getting married would be sitting down across from the woman doing her eyebrows, and while she's doing her eyebrows, all the important women in her life will come, put their hands on her head and give her a blessing, and then
but you
put
did
money.
that. We did that also too for our wedding. We had a koshino.
Yes.
And we think if we'll remember to, if those of you watching on YouTube, we'll put a picture
Like,
of it or what it looked like.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did. And then we also wore like in Bukharian, because we wore something called like a jome.
Yeah.
It's like this big, gigantic, hot,
Robe.
sweaty, colorful robe thing that hasn't been washed since it was created. So it's probably like 500 years old.
Honestly, it's true. It's funny. The jome is like a piece of clothing also that we pull out at every wedding, every festivity. It's kind of like Bukharians, I think, are very connected to their heritage, and it's like we always have to remind ourselves that we're Bukharian,
because it's also a minority. We're a very, very small percent. Like it's a very small group
community. Yeah.
So they always, like, that's the thing. Even in like other places, like it seems like it's so many of us, but it's just only because we're all just so together all the time.
Bukharians always stick to Bukharians.
Yeah, just so like Jews as well, but like with Bukharians, it's like very, very niche community.
Yeah, so if you guys want to know where the majority of Bukharians live now, the biggest community is in Queens, like 108th Street in New York.
Yeah.
All the Bukharians, the Diamond District in New York, let's just say
47th Street.
All Bukharians, most Bukharians are jewelers.
Yeah,
so
jewelers
most of the people,
or barbers.
if you're buying jewelry on 108th Street, they're most likely Bukharian. I don't know why.
Or downtown Miami, they're probably all my cousins somehow.
Yeah, you know what? Funny story, actually, I remember about like jewelry and gold and stuff. I remember that my mom always told me that in Uzbekistan, they used to like always hide their valuables and hide their gold. And like when they wanted to leave the country, they weren't allowed to take anything with them. So like the women would like swallow their jewelry and like do all that crazy stuff.
When would it come out then?
The only other way it could come out, babe.
Disgusting.
But it's crazy because I think that leaving Uzbekistan was such a big deal because it's literally a culture that has been there for so long. And I think because they left as refugees, they had nothing to take with them. You know, that's why my mom and my family, your family, every time we moved or they moved to a different place, literally starting from zero.
Yeah, and I remember that's the thing, that when they were in Russia, they lived a very comfortable life. They had a home and everything, and they had to like leave everything behind because you couldn't take it with you. It wasn't like now you can sell your house and take the money with you. You had to leave it there and then just move to a completely different country and just start from scratch, you know?
I know. 100%.
But majority of Bukharians, as you see, like Haley said, like we're jewelers, barbers. Majority of them are businessmen. That's like, I guess, our root.
It's true. You know how there's certain like cultures that pride people in like getting higher educations? Like from what I know from Persians, obviously like, I don't want to stereotype, but just because my brother-in-law is Persian, like a lot of them like put value in becoming doctors.
Yeah, my brother too. My sister's husband also like
dentistry school, you know.
Dentist,
everyone's
law
educated.
School, medicine, doctor. Like
Bukharians, it's like you open a business, you're good, bro.
Yeah, you're good.
Know?
It's okay. Like literally, a lot of high school dropouts, like age 50, just dipped and
then
went
they just
to
work in jewelry.
Yeah, that's it. My dad wanted me to work in jewelry too, and I was like, nah, no thanks.
I think me and you were very like, you know what? Let's like be Bukharian.
That's why it's very rare to see like Bukharian influencer. Like anybody that knows Bukharian, it's like it can't be in the same sense. Or a Bukharian trainer, like it doesn't make sense. But you know, we try to break the norm. You know, do something outside of it.
So I want to go back quickly to the whole like strict parent situation. So you guys have to understand something about my father. When Egan and I were dating, again, when we were dating, we actually had to do this whole thing called a kankhori, which is basically an announcement to the entire world that you are officially dating somebody.
To say that like I'm taken and she's taken.
Yes. So this tradition is actually really cute.
No, it's very nice. In the beginning, I wasn't okay with it because I didn't want to like make a big deal about it. But
let me explain to them what it is. It's basically that you take the guy's family and you take the girl's family and they all sit down at a table. And you basically have to feed each other a sugar cube or you feed each other sweets. And that's kind of like the unification of you starting your relationship, you know?
You're starting off on a sweet note. But you have to also explain what happened. I think that's what I'm assuming. What else would they give them? Hot sauce? It wouldn't be a good thing.
You would like that, though.
I would love that. It's like some sriracha.
But yeah, I think it's such a beautiful tradition. But you have to understand that, like, when Egan and I did this, it was like so emotional. Everyone was treating it like we were getting engaged.
Because in the Bukharian culture, it's similar like that. You have kankhori, which is to announce your date. You have shinikhori, which is the engagement. And then you have, I don't know how to say it in Bukharian, but we have khatuna, like the wedding. That's how you say it in Hebrew. But sometimes back in the day, it was so close together. Like the time you get married, like 2-3 months. And again, also in the Jewish culture. But you would have a kankhuri and a shinukhuri together technically.
Yeah, because
most
it's so
likely
short.
if you dated, you ended up being married as well.
So that is something I wanted to point out in terms of like a value that we got from our culture that bled into our relationship. I think the fact that I always wanted to date for marriage was definitely a value that my parents instilled in me from the Bukharian culture, because casually dating was like just not a thing. It's like if you're looking to be with someone, it was really like for marriage purposes. Listen, back then it was super old school. Like men would choose women based on like, yeah, she seems very fertile kind of thing, you know?
Not even just that. It's like because again, you grew up in the way my parents explained it. You grew up in a very small village neighborhood, and so there wasn't no Facebook back then,
or
Tinder, social media, all that stuff. So the way you knew who you were going to marry is whoever's in your city, and you could have grew up with this person. Yeah,
exactly.
And so if both parents liked, had a good relationship with each other, like, oh, you're a good family, we're a good family, let's make it happen. But in order to have a kankhuri, the way it worked is that the boy's side has to go to the girl's side, and to the parents. And what would happen is, like, I think your parents did the same thing, and my parents too. But what would happen is that your parents, from what they told us, your dad and his parents came to your mom's house,
and my mom was not ready for it.
Yeah,
she didn't want.
You have to basically ask permission from the parents to date
the daughter, but before even like asking the daughter if she was even interested. So my mom, okay, first let me even tell you guys how my dad like met my mom. Literally, like, she was, I think for her date, like,
he stalked her.
He like stalked her. Yeah, honestly, my dad
so messed
my
up.
dad was away for school, and then he came back, and he said that he saw like a bunch of girls going to the movies, and he saw one girl who like he recognized, I think, from the neighborhood, and he like just followed them there.
So good. Now you probably call the cops.
I know, but he didn't do anything. He just followed them there, and then after he like learned where she lives, because again they were neighbors.
Yeah, it's a very small village, small town. Everybody knew everybody.
And let me tell you this, at some point when he approached her and he wanted to ask her out, do you know what the first thing that came out of my mom's mouth? He's like, you have to ask my father for permission. So literally my dad went and he asked my grandfather for permission, and my grandfather asked, what's your avlot, which in Bukharian is like, what's your family background? Because I think Bukharians really believe in the whole apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah, very true.
When couples were dating, they would always like want to know about the person's family. It's like, do the parents have a good reputation? Which it's not always ideal. Sometimes parents make mistakes. I don't think that the kids should always suffer for it.
But back then, they would be able to see how, I guess, the
kids were brought up.
Yeah, the kids were brought up, as opposed to like, if you would see how the parents were and they were a good family, you can assume that the daughter or son was in good hands and they would have the same values.
You know, these days, babe, it still happens. Like when people want to date, they like literally do these like phone calls that they call families, and they like find out where people are from, and like, is everyone together?
It's also just
faithful?
Depends.
You know, like,
it also depends, because I know, for instance, in Judaism and Bukharian and other cultures as well, like we have a lot of Jewish holidays, for example, and I would talk to my friends. I'm like, oh, how often do you see your parents? Like, oh, once a year, maybe on like Christmas or something, or maybe once every 2 years. Or they'll tell me, I haven't seen my parents or grandparents in like 5 years. I'm like, wow, that's a long time. Like usually now we would see our parents at least every 3 or 4 months.
Like Bukharians, that's a huge thing. Bukharians is a very family focused culture. Family first. Respect your parents first. Like, it's very rare that when grandparents get old, Bukharians would like put them in a retirement home. Yeah. Like that doesn't really happen. Like if anything, I know that there was always this like unspoken law that the youngest of the family would like take in the parents if like one of them pass away, or if like,
or in general, when you got married, you move in with your parents.
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, that is true. I think that my mom said when they got married, they moved in with his parents and they like lived
also,
there
it was
for
like
a long
these
time.
people like got married very young, and so because of that they couldn't afford to live on their own, so they had to live with their parents.
Guys, when we say young, we don't mean like 20, like I'm talking like 15,
14. I think my grandma got married at like 13, 14, something like that.
Like as soon as they get their period, they're like, okay, you're ready for marriage.
I think now again they're more mature back then. So yeah, Haley's parents ended up like talking to your dad's parents, and your mom ran away.
My mom got very overwhelmed. She's just like, why is he doing this, like making this whole thing official? Very much kind of like with my situation with you, where I got scared and you were like, let's do it, and I was like, you know. Yeah. But I really think that, I don't even know how they got over that whole situation, but it's just really crazy to see how Bukharians put so much emphasis on like relationships and marriage and intimacy and like all that stuff. But it's like the number one goal of every Bukharian parent is to see their kids start a family and have kids.
Yeah.
I think pride and joy in this culture is not how much money you make or what job you have or how big your house is. It's really like how many grandkids can you give me?
Yeah, I mean, in general, there is
bigger families and like
yeah,
just continuing. I think that's what it is. Continuing the culture.
The culture, and I think in general, every culture, every family, and all that stuff have like where money is a main factor and it's a priority and status and whatever. But yeah, like Haley said, a lot of the times it's about like expanding and having more kids, and also in Jewish cultures like that as well. I think that's where we derive it from. It's not just Bukharian, just like that's how Judaism is, and then because below Judaism is Bukharians, we get it from that. Exactly. We just take it very, very seriously.
But again, it's not really just like pop out as many kids as possible. Obviously, like intentionally, but growing families, having big families is so normal to us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why when we had like Naomi so quickly after Aliyah,
it was a normal thing. That's how we grew up. It was like part of it.
People are just like, oh, whoa, like she's pregnant already. Like, don't you want like one kid or two kids? It's like, no, like I want a big family. Like it was just so normal. Like my mom is one of 5 sisters, you know? And like my grandpa
is one of 13.
One of 13. Okay, that's like, that's a lot.
Hey, we're behind. You catch up.
Yeah, okay. You can catch up if you carry the children, you know? But I also wanted to talk about another huge aspect of Bukharian culture.
I know, but babe, you're missing the fact of like how Bukharian parents would even like ask the parents like about the kids.
What would they ask?
Like, let's say in general, how it would be is that because the Bukharians migrated into Russia, they have more of a Russian accent. So like, I think in today's time it's like this too. Let's say the guy's parents would go to the girl and they're like, "Hi, how are you? Good. Listen, I have boy, you have daughter. We put together, everybody happy, okay?"
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on Bukharian grandparents.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you turn like 12, she's like, "I have a boy for you."
Yeah. My aunt would come to me, she's like, in Hebrew, she's like, "I have a girlfriend." I'm like, Doda, like that's in Doda means aunt in here. I'm like, I'm 15. I don't need no girl right now. She's like, no. And then my mom was like, I didn't finish school. He's like, no, I said school. We didn't have school back in the day. And
yeah, we gotta get married.
It's crazy.
Jack, yeah.
Honestly, thank God I didn't have to deal with that so much because
our parents are more modern.
Not even that. By the time they were trying to introduce me to anybody, I met you already. I was like, I'm already dating a girl from Canada.
That's true. But guys, I'm telling you now, we actually do know a lot of people that still get married really young.
But you got approached that way too. One time there was a family that came to your house and they were like this. Yeah. And that's the thing, sometimes the kids don't even know.
Yeah.
Like back in the day and sometimes even now, the kids have no idea. The parents will just come and then they'll come to you after like, listen, I spoke to so-and-so's parents. You're going to date her. And then you're like, I don't even know who this girl is. Yeah. And you're like, don't worry, you're going to get to know her. She has good family.
So that happened to me. There was a guy who his parents, like me and the guy, like we didn't even meet, but his parents went to my dad because they worked together. And he was literally like, oh, my son is like interested in your daughter. Like maybe we should get them to date, blah, blah, blah. And honestly, when I heard that, I was so like, I don't like that. I'm like, where's your balls? Like, ask me out yourself. Like, why are you going to my dad, you know? But it's like, I think it was more coming from like a respectful place, you know? But it's just crazy. Like my dad told me, my dad never even shared this information with me until I met you. He's like, yeah, you know that there was like a few families that came to me that their sons wanted to date you. And I always said no, like my daughter's in school.
And I just stole her from the bag. Nobody paid attention.
My dad's probably thinking, I should have married you off to them. At least he'd still be in Canada, you know?
Yeah. No, but either way, for our kankhori, the way it worked is that Haley's parents booked a cruise with your aunt and her husband. That was
so crazy.
And we just started dating at that point. And again, we weren't thinking about marriage or anything. I didn't want to put any pressure. None of us wanted to have any pressure on us.
But it's the fact that you're Bukharian and I'm Bukharian and we're dating.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
That was the thing. You know? And so both families knew that we were kind of dating, but it wasn't like an official thing. And so what happened was that Haley's parents went to Miami, stayed at my parents' house for like a Shabbat.
They were just gonna go on a cruise.
They were going on a cruise, yeah.
But then
they made it a big deal and whatever. They did like barbecue, shashlik, which shashlik means barbecue in Bukharian.
They literally did a kankhori without us.
No, they didn't do a kankhori. They discussed it. So what happened was we're so nervous because my parents and her parents were meeting for the first time without us being there.
Yeah.
So we're freaking out. We don't know how it's gonna be. Are they gonna like each other or not? Even though my parents met your mom already, but they came, they hit it off, it was great. And then when they came back, your uncle and your aunt were talking to my cousins and they were like, yeah, Eran's parents are going to be coming next month for a party and they're going to do kankhori. And I was freaking out. And I'm like, no, we're not. Because like in my head, I'm like, if we do kankhori, we need to get married in 2 months. And I don't want to do that. And so I spoke to my father. My father's like, listen, it's part of the culture. I'm like, Papa, I don't want to get married so soon. And Haley's not going to like it either. He's like,
you already knew I'd freak out.
I know. And I'm like, and he's like, listen, you don't understand. It's Bukharian culture. Both families Bukharian. We have to do it. It's like, it's all it is just announcing that you're taken, she's taken, nobody can approach you guys. It's going to be very nice. We're going to do it in a day. You're going to exchange sugars. We're not going to make a big deal about it. And that's it. I'm like, okay, if it's just that, fine. So, but then afterwards, he's like, my mom called me. Actually, we need to buy her gifts and jewelry and purse. And I'm like, no, Mom, we don't need to do that because back in the day, the way it worked is when you did a kan khori and shin khori, the husband side would come to the woman's side with gifts with the other family members.
It wasn't like he's trying to buy her. It was just kind of
it's kind of like back in a perfect example is like in royal families when kings and queens got married, like the king would come with stuff to like show like he has wealth and whatever. It wasn't like that for us, but we just came to show like our appreciation or how we're grateful to have two families meet together.
They literally like got me a purse, perfume, a diamond necklace.
I told my parents, don't no jewelry. Like, no, we have to get something because some families go way overboard and they buy too many things like thousands of dollars worth. And I told my dad, Papa, she's not gonna like it.
I'm a simple person. I don't need that.
Yeah, I'll buy the I call my dad Papa. I don't know, maybe other people do it, maybe they don't, doesn't matter. But I told him she's not gonna like it. Like, no, we have to get her something. So I'm okay, buy her like because Haley's a very minimalistic person. So I'm like, just get her like a diamond heart, because my father works in jewelry. So they got that purse and something else.
It was like a whole thing.
Everybody was crying there too.
I know, it was so emotional because I think that, like we said in the past podcast, people just knew that we would end up together.
Yeah.
And my parents were not even like thinking about me dating, because my sister, who was older than me, like they were kind of like focusing on her love life and her possible dating, whatever. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, Haley's like doing kankhori, and for them it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So like my dad was literally crying, and I was like, Dad, we're not getting married till like next year. Relax. He's like, oh, really? Like, okay, fine. Okay, that's good.
On top of that, like I had to also go to your parents and bring it up to you, and you have to bring it up to them, because like the worst thing that could have happened is if this happened and your parents are like, no, or they wouldn't say no, but like they would have been uncomfortable, or you would have said no, but you wouldn't, because we were already dating at that point. So I had to like ask Haley's parents for permission before, and like I had to go to Haley's mom and tell her like it was very, very hard to do it.
We're just going into this in detail so you guys can literally see that like the dating process is like a big deal, and we're considered very modern Bukharians. You know, there's a lot of like, I don't think arranged marriage is still a thing, but it's like suggested marriage. That's what it is. It's basically like parents have a girl or a guy for their child, and they're like, oh, they come from a good family, and then they start dating. If they hit it off, like nobody forces you to get married to anybody.
And at the end of the day, they're not gonna force. Back in the day, maybe like we've heard stories that people like only found out they were getting married like the week of.
And not only that,
and the woman would be like, what the hell?
They got married and it wasn't a good situation. Bukharians didn't believe in divorce.
Yeah, they're like, suck it up, make it work.
Make it work, suck it up, even if it's like an abusive relationship or anything like that.
Very,
of course,
again, it's back in the day, that's
there's not great people in every culture, but like literally, like it was nuts. Thank God that we've came out of that right now.
Evolved since then.
But next thing I want to talk about is something that is huge in the Bukharian culture, and that is food. And you know, the reason I actually chose my drink to be a green tea today is because Bukharians literally drink green tea all the time, plain, no sugar, nothing. And this, honestly, my grandma would call this an atrocity because I'm using a real tea bag.
Not even that. Usually they have the leaves in it.
Like it's genuine green tea leaves that they put in the water, which is insane.
And they drink it no matter what. It can be like 105 degrees outside, and they'll still like bring out tea. They call it chai.
So let's just say we are a culture that is fully immersed in food. And I don't even know how to explain this, because I think a lot of people like don't really understand the extent of what I mean. When you go to Bukharian events, weddings, parties, like even houses for Shabbat, the table is so full of stuff that you don't even see the tablecloth. 20 salads, 3 main courses, 2 fish entrees, like soup, meat. Oh, so much meat. There's 3 things that Bukharian cuisine that Bukharians always have in their food. That is meat, oil, and rice. Everything is either fried. All fatty things. The worst. Literally, like, I don't know how many Bukharians, God forbid, died of heart attacks, but like, honestly, we have the worst possible
honestly, it's true.
cuisine, you know? but it's delicious. Like Bukharian food is good. We are such a cool blend of two different cultures when it comes to our cuisine. Eran, do you know what they are? If you can guess, think of all the foods that we eat.
Right. Oh, Asian,
And
Persian.
yeah, exactly. Look
I'm
at
Bukharian.
you.
I'm supposed to know this
You
stuff.
should know. You should know. But basically, you guys, I'll tell you a couple of dishes that we have that are so similar to Asian culture. So we have this food called lagman. If any of you guys watch my channel,
Oh,
you
lagman is mad good.
yeah, it is
Some
mad good. It's
sriracha.
basically like a meat broth soup with vegetables and noodles. So it's literally like it's like a Bukharian version of ramen, pretty much, which is so good. We also have stuff called mante.
But all this stuff you're saying is
The Russian
the Russian way. The Bukharian is mantu.
Mantu.
Mantu. You have samse in Russian. We have
Gozh-
guzhgije.
Yeah. And pilimeni, which is like a lot of the Russians know it as like the little dumplings.
We call it jushbere.
Dushpere in Bukharian. And a lot of these things are very like Asian core, and that is a big part of our culture. On the other hand, because of the fact that we are like Persian, like more Persian dialect, we have a lot of Persian dishes as well. So I've spoken about bakhsh before, which is basically like cilantro rice. We have stuffed grape leaves and stuffed onions and
What is
stuff.
that one called in Bukharian?
Oshtoki.
Oshtoki.
Yes.
And I think in Russian is listiki.
Listiki, which means leaves. But it's really cool to just have this like immersion of two of like what I think are some of the best cuisines that there are out there. And if any of you guys can ever experience going to a Bukharian restaurant, we have one in Miami, we have many in New York.
Two. Yeah, many in
There's
New
some
York.
in Israel. Delicious food, honestly, amazing. And then we even got to a point where once a year we always have these like picnics and like gatherings whenever there's an event or like someone passes away and you want to commemorate them. Everyone gathers around this thing called a tandir, or no, tandir is what you make the livyoshka in. It's basically like a huge outdoor stovetop.
A seer, no, it's called a seer.
Seer is the pan, but it's an outdoor stovetop that you literally put like wood and a fire, and you make a Bukharian dish called plov.
Yeah, it's a big, huge.
Yeah, and I know a lot of
bowl.
Russians and Ukrainians, I think, also
Yeah.
have a similar dish. It's basically rice with carrots and meat, sometimes chickpeas. Delicious. It's literally so good. But it's just crazy to me how Bukharians surround everything around food. Like even koshinon, like we said, it's all about the sweets, the desserts, and all of that kind of stuff. Whenever
We
we
love
go,
food. That's not. Now you guys understand where it comes from on our end.
we do genuinely love
But
food.
we don't need as much Bukharian food. We like more like finger foods.
Finger foods, yeah. Like let's just say, I think any Bukharian family would come to this house and be disgraced because I make on Shabbat, they make like plov and bakhsh and lagman and all these things, and I'll make like wings and flatbread and like salads.
My parents like, what the hell? So we would have to like make a menu for like the young people, and then like my parents have like Bukharian food.
Exactly, and my dad is exactly the same. Oh my god, he loves Bukharian food. It's just that Bukharian men are like meat eaters. Like you won't see Bukharian vegans rarely.
Like
it's not a possibility.
Bukharian men don't really like, they don't cook as much, but there's one thing, and my dad takes pride in. He won't cook anything. He does. I don't even know if he knows how to cook, but like we have something called shashlik. What it's basically when you have the meats on the skewers.
It's just Bukharian barbecue.
Bukharian barbecue, and you put it like on the, we call a mangal. So it's like a big thing. You put a fire and then you just turn it up.
And that is like the man's responsibility.
Yeah, the guys do that. Like, maybe the women could like help like prep it, but they do it. They put it on a grill. They bring vodka, and like they're like in their element. And
oh yes, how could I forget the vodka?
yeah, they drink a lot.
Oh my gosh, Bukharians drink a lot. I don't know if it's all Bukharians.
Not in Europe, not in Canada so much. I lost my tolerance when I moved to Canada. When I came back, I was screwed when I drank with my father. Like,
and I'm talking like a huge bottle shared between 3 people.
Yeah, we drink
in an hour.
Stolichnaya, which is like $30 vodka bottle you can buy. It's like cheap one.
It's probably the cheapest vodka.
Tastes
That's why
literally
Bukharians
tastes
love it.
like
rubbing alcohol.
yeah, pretty much. Like, what is it called? I don't remember. But either way, hand sanitizer. And I would drink. I remember I started drinking at the age of like 11, 10.
Oh yeah, that's like normal.
Young, like not like finishing bottles, but like a few shots, because my dad was like, drink, like one day you're gonna grow up. I know you're gonna go to parties and stuff. You need to prepare yourself. So he would literally make me drink when I was like a few 2 shots when I was like 10, 12, and as I got older, he would drink. by the time I would be 16 going to parties,
You have such a tolerance.
I would have a talent. So all my other friends would be plastered after 3. Again, it's not something we advise. Don't
Not
do
only
that.
that, please
We're
don't
not planning to do that with our
Yeah,
kids.
don't call child services on us.
Yeah.
We're not going to be doing that.
That's just how I grew up, and like it's a big cultural thing. Like when it comes to like drinking the Bukharian culture, it's like a sign of respect and like
And
how
manliness.
manly you are. So like
So dumb.
if you came for the first time to like your father-in-law's house, you in their house with Shabbat, he's like, hi bo shev, and he's like, bo timzok. If you like say, nah, I don't drink, he's gonna
You're
look,
like a wuss.
he's gonna look at the daughter and say, don't bring him back here anymore.
Yeah.
You have to like compete, you know, even though your dad, thank God, was not like that, but
Nah.
many Bukharian cultures like this. So you have to like keep up and show you're
Yeah.
you're man enough to do
My
it.
dad, I think, was, I'll tell you what, because my parents like lived in a certain area that was just more Russian, my dad became very like Russianized, you know? So I want to also say like my dad was a lot more of like a gentleman
Yeah.
than some Bukharian roles. I think old school, it was very much like the man, literally like, unfortunately, very much like the man just sits on the couch, the woman just like makes the food and like brings him the food. And it's
He would
not
work and that's it.
he
Come
would
back
work
home.
and that's it. The wife would be like the stay-at-home mom. Yeah, it's like literally old school roles. Obviously, we're literally not living that kind of life anymore. But like my father was very Russianized, so like he would be doing the dishes, he would be doing the laundry.
He also lived on
would
his
be
own for
helping.
some time.
Exactly. So I definitely think that like the culture definitely varies. Like I'm a very different Bukharian than Bukharians in New York. You know,
New York,
it's
Miami,
a culture shock
it's
for
a
me when
different
I
culture,
go there.
yeah.
But let's just say that it's really funny. What comes to mind right now is even on our wedding, we had our wedding in Israel because we just like both had a lot of family there. And we had the Shabbat Khatan, which is basically like the first Shabbat after you get married is kind of like a celebration. And I remember that everybody there knew that Erin and I can't speak Bukharian, but like they didn't care. So they all stood up and started blessing us in Bukharian,
Yeah,
and
like,
we
oh,
couldn't understand a thing that they were saying.
And then my dad was like, let's get up. And we get up, and they're like, oh, saying all this stuff, like blessing. And we're like, and my dad's like nodding, so we're just nodding. So yeah. We didn't understand a single word. And as soon as they're done, you have to go give him a kiss on the chico. Thank you. Like we had no idea what was going on, and it's just crazy. And in terms of the vodka thing, I think also comes from the fact of like the father wants to test the guy and see how he is under the influence, to see like what his true intentions are, how he talks. So if you have a guy, because you say when you drink, like the truth spills out. So if you give a guy a bunch of alcohol and he just starts saying like, yo, I'm like this, like that, the guy father's gonna be like, I know
It's
what
kind
your
of like
true
they
thing
say
is about.
that alcohol is like a truth serum in a way.
Or that, or put you to sleep, knock
it's
out.
one of the two. But I definitely think that like our culture has a lot of like those rich traditions. And I think what is really, really beautiful though is just how much you can like meet a Bukharian in a different place and like you find so much in common.
Yeah.
And like the jokes are kind of all the same. The humor is really
I feel like
very the same.
around other Bukharian, it's just an automatic like connection that you understand, because like both grew up in the same culture, whether it was in Canada, New York, in Israel, or something, Miami. Like it was very relatable. You knew how the custom was growing up.
Yeah.
That's why ideally it's also very important, like for many Bukharians, not so much in this time, but it was very important that Bukharians married Bukharians.
Oh my gosh.
That's
yes.
why a lot of times people got married to their first cousins or something, because they wanted to keep everything.
Oh my gosh,
within
yeah,
the
guys,
family.
that is something else. There used to be a lot of like marriage between, not even used to, like actually. Yeah,
No, there's some people that still get married now to like their third, fourth cousin. You know, like
I know,
it's
because
kind of
I'll tell you what it is.
about.
I'll tell you what it is. I think it's the whole fact of, because Bukharians back then all grew up in the same neighborhood, most of the people that lived around you were your family.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't imagine like marrying my third cousin.
That was the first question I asked her when I met her. I'm like, are you my cousin? She's like, no. All right, cool.
Okay, fine, we're good. But like literally so many Bukharians are related, which is insane to think. But genuinely, I feel like it's such a rich culture, and there's so many aspects of it that I want to bring down to my kid. Like even the whole eyebrow aspect, like I said, my grandmother, like this was her job, and then she taught it to her daughter, and she taught it to her daughter, and like my mom taught it to all three of us. And like I'm definitely going to teach it to Aaliyah, because I think it's just a beautiful tradition to uphold. Doesn't mean that I got my eyebrows done when I was 11. We still don't
Yeah.
wait. Listen, the unibrow I had, let's just say Erin would not be with me right now if I kept it, you know? But even
For
though
sure.
I married you with your eyebrows not being done, you know.
Hey, listen, those are different times. My
I
friend.
know. We've grown up a lot since then, but what would you say is your favorite aspects of our culture, and something that you just like really love about it,
No,
I guess.
I just love the fact that the Bukharians are very like united together. Like they very much like help each other out. Like when somebody like God forbid passes away, or there's certain events or whatever. Like
Everybody shows up.
everybody shows up. Even in our events, like if you come to a certain event, you have a party, like everybody's like, it's like a known fact that you bring an envelope with money to help the wedding happen or the bar mitzvah
Oh my
happen.
gosh, can we actually talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how it is. Maybe you guys can comment below if you're watching on YouTube. But when you go to somebody's wedding as a guest, is it like acceptable for you to just bring a gift? Or...
Usually no. Usually we just give a gift,
Yeah,
or
I
like
think
or
so.
like dishes
In
or
Bukharian
this that.
culture, you give the people getting married money.
Yeah.
And you give them a lot of money. Like, I think it's genuinely like this whole helping the couple
Yeah, meaning
start their life.
yeah, exactly. Not even just usually majority of Bukharians, like many cultures, they don't give it to the family unless if they could afford to. Usually, it just helps pay for the wedding, because some people want to do a nice wedding, an event, but they cannot afford to do it. Now, if you have a wedding in general now with kosher food and you have to get a
gets so
wedding hall, it gets
expensive.
very expensive. You have to invite, you have a lot of family and stuff. It gets like $60,000, $70,000, $100,000, something like that. So the usually people that guests that come, they all pitch in and they give like however much money they can give for their seat, and they help cover, and it helps pay for a lot of the wedding.
I'll tell you one thing about that I do think is another value that I really do personally love. I don't know if this is everywhere, but my parents, when I was growing up, it was very evident to us that they would not be paying for our school. It was something that my parents like always valued, that like, listen, it's your education. If it's important to you, you can take out a loan and you can pay for it because you're going to school for yourself, not for us. And I know a lot of people may think, oh, like your parents are just like throwing you out into the wild like that. Like, why aren't they helping you? But you know, when they come through, when it comes to the wedding, it is very widely accepted that the parents financially help with the wedding. Again, I don't know if this is everywhere, but at least from what I've been seeing.
Which is also why we usually get married very young.
Yeah, exactly. So I think with a lot of people, getting married young seems impossible, because if you're a young couple and you're expected to pay for your wedding yourself, it's like you need to save up, you don't want to be in debt, so you just take a really long time to get married. Because Bukharians prioritize getting married quickly so that the couple can stay pure, as they say.
Pure, start their life, have more kids young, because obviously it's easier when you're younger.
It's more of the fact that Bukharians don't like couples dating for a long time, because it's most likely that they'll have sex, and they don't want that, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, the parents would be like, okay, you know what? We're going to help you with your wedding. So as much as my parents didn't pay for my school, I took out a loan and I paid for it myself. When it came to the wedding, they're like split it between them. So Eran's parents and my parents were like, okay, this is the whole wedding. What's my half of the bill? What's your half of the bill? We'll take care of it. And that's the reason why Bukharians also give money when they go to people's events, to help the parents cover the wedding, you know? So you don't actually go into debt most of the time because of the wedding. And I'll tell you what I do personally love about that. It's the fact that you're not putting any like financial stress on the couple as soon as they start their life, because I genuinely think that financial stress on a new couple is one of the hardest things that you can do. And that's why I honestly, if people want to wait to get married until they can afford their life, I understand.
Yeah, that's
like,
the thing.
We had the luxury that our parents were willing to pay for our wedding.
Yeah,
not everybody has that.
Not even that. Like we're also in a religion where you can't have you're not intimate until you're married. So it's like we have to get married young, and that's one of the ways to kind of help it out. And it's not just even about the wedding, like also parents help start your life. So a lot of couples get married and they don't have the financial means to live on their own or to get an apartment. So they take the couple into their house. Oh, if they thank God, like have enough money, they'll be like, listen, we'll cover the rent for you, we'll help with groceries, we'll help you get started. Like if you have a kid, we'll help take care of the kid, whatever you need just to help you get started. I think that
my favorite aspect of our culture is just like the togetherness and the importance of family, which is why it was just so hard for me to leave from Canada, right? Because like my entire life, I always thought I was going to be the kind of person who like buys a house down the street from my mom, you know? But you know what? Living far doesn't take away from our togetherness. Like we're always there for each other in the important times. And like, I just think that the unity is really, really beautiful. Yeah. But again, we don't like stick with ourselves. All of our friends are not Bukharian. Like we're friends with everybody, obviously. But I do think it's beautiful that Eran and I have this shared culture, because we just get each other so much. I personally think that there's so many things in a marriage that you can like think differently. And in this aspect, we think the same.
Yeah, and I think it's easy. It's all in general. Like obviously, other people you don't need to marry in the same culture that you were raised in. Is very much people that marry.
Yeah, my sister married an Ashkenaz, and then my other sister married a Persian guy. Yeah. So it's like.
But in general, like if it's easier when you like if an Italian marries an Italian or a Persian marries a Persian, like or a Jew marries a Jew, like it's obviously it's you understand both of your backgrounds. So when a Bukharian marries a Bukharian, it's easier to migrate together as a family. You get each other. The culture is very similar.
The expectations for how you raise your kids are
that's why it's very important for Bukharians to marry other Bukharians, and on top of that, marry into families that you have a good relationship with and have peace with, because they're very family-oriented people. They want to have good shalom. They want to have good peace into the marriage in the future with grandkids and great-grandkids. So that's why it's very important to instill those values into the kids, and then have other families that you marry together and have those values continue on.
Honestly, you guys, this is something I could talk about forever. The amount of funny stories that we have. Like, literally, this is just scratching the surface and giving you, like, the basics of Bukharian culture. Very basics. But I think that we're going to leave it here today, because there's just so much that we can talk about. But hopefully you guys got a little bit of an insight of like how we grew up and like what kind of mindset we grew up in. Please know a lot of the things that we said may be very like, how was that a thing, or how is that normal? But like things have changed. We've modernized, you know. But I would really love for all of you listeners to comment down below what culture you belong to, like where are you from, where were you born,
what's your background,
do you have any similarities in culture and in like ways of thinking? I would really love to know. If you guys can comment below if you're watching on YouTube. If you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple, we would love it if you rate our show. Give us 5 stars if you enjoyed it, because we have so much fun talking to you guys. We have over 100 reviews on Spotify, which is amazing. Crazy. But if you guys are watching up to this point, you are the real MVPs. We love the ones who stick around all the way till the end. And if you watch up to this point, oh my gosh, I'm going to make your life hard. Comment down below Bukharian.
Let's see who spells it right.
However you think it should be spelled. And don't cheat. Don't go on Google, you know.
Bukharian.
But guys, thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the podcast, and Eran and I always have fun reminiscing in our crazy culture.
For sure.
But we love you all so much. Please comment down below any other ideas you want for podcasts, and we can't wait to see you, speak to you, hear you
in our next one.
Love y'all.
See y'all next week. Peace out.